I'm going to do it. I'm going to cut down this big white fir. We have a few challenges here. It could be rotten inside because it's a white fir. It could be really smelly inside because it's a white fir. And I have this short, stubby 32-inch bar, and it's a big tree. It'll take a little bit of technique to get it down. One of the things I think we have going for us, looks like it has a little bit of a lean toward the right, which just happens to be the direction I want it to go. It has a big butt swell on it. We're going to cut it up above the swell because we just don't need that big swell, and it makes it more difficult for cutting. One concern is there's a hole here, or an indentation. I don't know if it's rotten in there. Ideally, this is right where my hinge would be. I'm going to bore into it a little bit right at ground level just to see how solid it is inside. It's not hollow in there, but the wood is a little bit borderline. Another reason to cut it a little bit higher to try to get into more solid wood, and to annoy those who don't like our high West Coast stumps. That's worth something. I want to get this undercut in deep enough, but I'm looking at this spot here. The way this furrow looks, it's different than the rest of them. It could be an indicator of a scar, and I want my hinge to be right where that spot is. But I'm keeping an eye on my sawdust, and the sawdust is looking good, so I don't think we're rotten in there. If the sawdust starts changing colors, looking like it's hitting rotten wood, then I'll probably do a shallower undercut to avoid the rotten spot. Ideally, I want the cut to be perpendicular to the tree. I can tell it's sloped down just a little bit more than I would like, but it'll be okay. The next part's a little bit tricky. To cut this side off and get it to line up with the other one. To continue the cut, I want to stay in my cut. That way it's a solid cut all the way through and you don't double cut it. The tricky part is knowing how far to come back so you line up with the other side. I don't have a real good technique for that other than just doing it by feel. I gunned in with the sights on the other side the direction I want it to go. When I get back here, I want to do the same thing. Make sure it's lined up in the same direction. I can feel with the tip where the back of this cut is. When doing the cut, just remember you can always stop the saw and feel where the back of the cut is as a guideline. This is one of those things that takes practice. I cleaned out the sawdust in that last pass. Looking in this side, I can see the tip of the bar is lined up with where it should be, and the saw is sighted in the way I want it to go. It's right where it needs to be. Now, this isn't the way to do it, this is a way to do it. It's what I think is probably the most or the least intimidating way to do it for a beginner. If you get that top cut straight enough that you can see daylight through the other side, that can help you see if it's lined up right. That's the easy part. The more difficult part is doing the undercut, getting it to line up on the other side when you can't see where it's even going to be. If you don't do this all the time, it can be really hard to get that to line up if you don't have the practice. If you've been watching my videos, I've been cutting a lot of trees lately that are shorter than my bar. I might be a little out of practice. If you have a good straight cut, you can see through the undercut and get a little bit of an idea of where you should go. But if you're just starting out, I would say be a little bit conservative with this. Maybe even intentionally come out a little bit short and then correct afterward, because if you come in short, meaning you come up like this on the other side instead of where it should be, if you come up short on this side, it's a lot easier to fix, whereas if you come in too deep, that's a problem. You don't want to come in back here. Ideally, you hit this point, but chances of doing that are pretty slim unless you're cutting big timber like this all the time. But if you come in short, you can fix that. But most of us aren't bucking Billy Ray. We're not going to get it just right the first time. I can look through the top cut, make an estimate of where it's going to come out on the other side, and go from there. When it went through to the top cut, I felt whatever it is you feel when you feel a void. That's how I knew to stop cutting. If you put your bar in this way now, you can use it as a visual guide. This is where I want the saw to come out. If I look from here down to the bar, I can see it's lined up in about the right direction, right about where I want it. So I don't need to make any corrections, I'll just keep going. That's pretty close. Got a little clumsy on that last cut, got a double cut, but that's easy to clean up. The camera forgot to turn on when I cut that double cut piece out. I'm cleaning it up just a little bit. So it's a little bit deeper right here than it is here. So I'm going to clean this up with just a little bit to line it up with this back cut. So we have a straight cut all the way across the back. Straight across all the way through. This is all good solid wood. No rot at all in it. Happy about that. Now we're getting close to the fun part where we get to watch this thing fall down and go boom. Let's just hope I remember to turn the cameras on this time. I'm starting on the downhill side because I want to be on the uphill side when I finish, because it's safer to be on the uphill side. I marked this line around here as a guide. You probably figured that out. I'm going to put some wedges in here. I'm pretty sure it's leaning the right direction, but 1% doubt does not equal 100% faith. And there's always those freak gusts of wind. That was exciting. If only you were here to hear and feel that whoop when it falls. They actually don't go boom, it's more of a whoop. I didn't stop and show you what I was doing with the back cut. Once I got going, I just wanted to keep going. I got too excited, I wanted to go over. I started in like this, and then somewhere around here, I pulled out some, and I cut until it was what looked like mostly parallel with this cut. I was a little bit off. The reason I didn't put the bar in all the way here, I was pretty sure it had a good lean on it, and I didn't want just this little piece holding it. So when I start cutting into it, it might tear out or do something weird because there's a lot of weight trying to pull it over. Probably wouldn't. So I cut in more like this, so it had more wood holding it here for when I came around the other side. My wedge was a little bit in the way, so I bored in like this, then finished it off like this. But it started going over before I was able to straighten this out, but that's okay, not a problem. It had a good lean on it. The result is it went down perfectly. I wanted to save this pine and this pine. I wanted it to go in the middle. I was expecting it might knock this one down or knock the top out of it. It only knocked the very top out of it. A branch caught it. I'm surprised the only other casualty I see is this cedar. Let's go see what other damage it did. Here's the top of that pine that broke out. It broke off right here because it's white fir. That's to be expected. And because I fell it over a hump. Good way to break a tree. But in this case, not a problem. Broke here, and the top of it shattered. I was expecting more collateral damage than that, but it looks like it only took out that one cedar. Well, that's just one way to cut down a big tree when you have a short, stubby bar. Remember, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. There are all kinds of other techniques. That's how you have your chainsaw fall off of a stump without doing anything. Just there it goes. If you're really good, you can start your cut like this, the same way I made my first cut on this one. Then you can finish it off something like this. But that's getting into Buck and Billy Ray level technique there. I think this is just the simple, easy way to do it. This is kind of awkward. I can't think of a good way to end the video. How about done?